What if I told you the whole timeline of Bayonetta 3 looked something like this? I'll provide evidence of everything that led me to this conclusion, and even something that might be proving Bayonetta's return. The Faeries, how Luka got his power, the ending debate, the variants and the multiverse, the Dark Adam and Eves, and even Sigurd's whole plan. The multiverse starts with Bayonetta 1 being its own timeline, who's now confirmed to be called the Witch in Remembrance, and according to Bayonetta 3 and actually Bayonetta 2's modern setting is proof of this, she doesn't change her outfit and her story ends here. Within her story, she raises the little one who we now know is Brave Cereza, which we play in the third game. Now onto Bayonetta 2. According to Bayonetta 3, this is a separate timeline as well as who also was the one who saved us at the end of Bayonetta 3. She's known as the Witch with Discerning Eyes. Now, did she experience these same events that the Witch in Remembrance experienced? Yes, just in her own timeline, since she seemed to have walked an almost identical path. Also, that B4 warehouse theory where 1 to 3 is one saga while B4 and B5 are another saga seems to be quite the cool coincidence now. Now, the extreme change in setting and technology between the two games I think could either be a very fast advancement, which is quite rare in society, or just that this part of Europe or Vigrid wasn't as advanced as the United States within a few years. I'm thinking the latter, since Enzo and Luka both have evidence of an experience similar to what happened in the first game.
Some witch with amnesia goes around calling herself a weapon, and it turns out she really got stuck with a kid's nickname.
Why can't you be an adorable little Cereza that weighs like 10 pounds?
Anyways, there is the third interpretation that some of you put forward, which was that Bayonetta 1 and 2 are the same person while Bayonetta 3 is Brave Cereza. While there is certainly evidence to prove it, but Scarborough Fair and Love is Blue have now debunked that interpretation, indicating that they are all separate people experiencing similar events to each other, which is why Luka and Enzo in Bayonetta 2 have experiences that mirror the previous game. It's also important to know that all Arch Adams, aka Luka variants across the multiverse, have been experiencing voices throughout their lives, all leading up to chapter 13 and 14 in Bayonetta 3 after all their souls merge into one. Luka, who is a Luka variant, a fairy king somewhere in the multiverse, but leads the fairies in a secluded part of the human world. To my knowledge, I believe that means in his universe or timeline. That forest in the secret chapter is likely Brave Cereza's world's version of this. I also like to think that Luka, whichever variant he may be, has that Twilight power unactivated. Now, how about Inferno, Paradiso, and Purgatorio? Do they all have multiple universes or different timelines or variants within them? No, there is only one Jubileus, one Sheba, and one Omni, and they all revolve around the multiple timelines.
Within the trinity of realities, the world of chaos is actually made up of countless universes, all stacked up together. That's the multiverse.
Phantasmarane, heck, even all the other demons too, seem to have a designated witch. Phantasmarane, shoutouts to you, Mr. Tommy L. Jenkins, even referred to his designated witch after mutually agreeing with Brave Cereza for a temporary contract. All of them are from Inferno and are summoned whenever a witch from the multiverse needs them. Quite the vicious all-con job considering an infinite amount of your bosses are calling. So, further proof of Paradiso and Inferno being only one of them is that in Radahn's description as someone who isn't a resident of the world of chaos, aka these ones, they do not have any counterparts in the multiverse. Wait, so does that mean in Bayonetta 1, Bayonetta 2, and Bayonetta 3, he was universe hopping? And he was the only one who we've seen who was the same person throughout all games, since there's only one of him. Now, going to Brave Cereza, whom we played in Bayonetta 3 as, is in the Brave timeline that branched out from the Witch in Remembrance's timeline, aka Bayonetta 1, who was the one who came back to return the favor. So that means our fan-made one, where the real Bayonetta shows up saving Brave Cereza, was quite right. But did this Brave Cereza experience the events just like the other two main timelines? Yeah. However, only similarly. The differences were she was never sealed, she didn't take care of a little one, and it seems like none of the events in Bayonetta 2 happened in this Brave timeline, since there are no recollections or references to Loki or Aesir throughout the game, except for those cards in chapter 1. If this isn't some gimmicky non-canon Easter egg type of stuff, it's likely she's already met a Loki variant, and the doll is her own one that she played with during the menu screen in Bayonetta 1, because that is the same girl, who's now grown up. So we have evidence of her meeting a Loki, but likely keeping the same hairstyle and outfit, since it looks like that's a very consistent feature of hers. Which means she probably defeated Aesir, and it's what led to her relearning Forbidden Umbran magic, because I really like to think that Aesir was the indicator for every Bayonetta who versed him or his variant to get stronger. So in summary, adventures with Loki and probably beating Aesir by herself in the Brave timeline, which signifies her being one of the strongest, if not the strongest Bayonetta in existence. Moving on to the other variants, and there are an infinite number of them, but the end chapter was the second second proof of an alternate timeline that isn't explored at all, even today. It's merely just another timeline similar to the Witch with Discerning Eyes one, at least outfit-wise. Bayonetta Bloody Fate is a separate timeline similar to the events of the Witch in Remembrance's timeline. Heck, I think even 8-bit Bayonetta is its own timeline, even if that's a joke. The other Bayonetta variants are in their own one too, that were killed by the Singularity at the hands of himself or just stronger homunculi. I just have to say Brave Cereza is quite cold-blooded. She didn't really flinch at all or anything seeing her own variants' death, but also their souls dissipating or returning to their original timelines. Put a pin on that, we'll get to that very soon. But moving on to the Alphaverse, which by now I think should be the name of every timeline in pop culture moving forward that indicates the one that discovered the multiverse. The Alphaverse in Bayonetta is where the first Sigurd first discovers the multiversal layer of the whole entire Bayoverse. This is also where Dark Eve and Dark Adam resided before they turned, well, dark, then causing mayhem in the multiverse. Keep in mind that Viola, Connor Sigurd, and Winning and Bayonetta are not from the Alphaverse, but from a separate one I like to think is the closest to the Alphaverse since they discovered it as well, or they discovered the multiverse as well, and entirely different timelines from any of the ones that we are familiar with or we have played through. Now in the ending, or in chapter 13, we are in the Alphaverse where there is a Sigurd hanging from the top. To clear up some confusion, this is actually the Sigurd from the Brave timeline who is good, who the Alphaverse Sigurd swapped with to sacrifice, quote unquote, for the progression of the evil plan and all that stuff to control homunculi from a distance and whatnot. But he swaps places with him from the Brave timeline and tricks John and Brave Cereza into bringing the Chaos Gears to Thule. Indirectly, even. Also, you can see that they are differentiated in their character bios. One is the student of the multiverse, likely signifying he was on our side, who was the one who was swapped with and hung, and the other one is called the Crafted Tyrant, aka the Singularity. I just wish they had something aesthetically different about each other, even if it was just very slight. And for the record, the Alphaverse / Evil Sigurd was just pretending to require a wheelchair. Now, Dark Eve and Dark Adam, while both from the Alphaverse, Dark Adam is said to have been a Luka variant who was actually trying to stop the Singularity by joining the Resistance. But after he'd been fighting for so long, his hatred turned into malevolence. He was the voice that was calling out into the multiverse that even Brave Luka, who is Arch Adam origin by the way, and Luka heard about this even when they were kids. Dark Eve is also a Bayonetta variant that fought alongside Luka in the Alphaverse, who sadly died and this was what was left over. I'm thinking she died first and then her Luka variant became hateful and got the Mangekyo Sharingan and all that stuff. Now what was left over, both of them started roaming across the multiverse, killing off Cereza's one by one, including Viola's biological mother, Winning and Bayonetta. But some may wonder, why is Connor Sigurd of Viola's timeline fighting with the Resistance against himself? I don't think anyone in the multiverse knew the true identity of the Singularity, including all the Sigurd variants themselves, which is why it must have been a shock to Viola. The same can be said for the Sigurd who was hanging, who is again the Sigurd from the Brave timeline who was swapped and sacrificed by the evil Alphaverse Sigurd. Or it could just be any Sigurd, to be honest. Lamau. The records of time before each game, I noticed it's actually a glimpse of the multiverse all the way back in 2009. In Bayonetta 1, it was a glimpse of the Brave timeline since Cereza here wasn't sealed and she is fighting in the witch hunts. In Bayonetta 2, it was a glimpse of that other parallel universes, the end. In Bayonetta 3, it was the events of Viola's timeline. The final battle takes place in a sort of throwaway universe due to the Statue of Liberty's torch, different from Viola's timeline's one, and due to the label of being an alternative verse. After the final battle, this is where Sigurd imploded and took the universe away from him. Now, that pocket universe that Viola magically appeared in is a small proof that the timelines return. I gotta thank Krillian for sending me this, shoutouts to you. It's likely that Dark Eve was left behind, since she probably wasn't allowed back into her timeline due to her crimes and whatnot, breaking the universal law or time travel law or whatever, but she's also the one who was potentially lurking in the prologue chapter due to the same summon. But just to clarify, this is a pocket universe that was probably made to throw away Dark Eve, since she was the only one left behind after all the variants were resurrected. I personally like to think that Radahn saved Viola, but it's kind of sad because, like, why didn't you save everyone else? Maybe he felt some sort of obligation and knew this is what Brave Cereza or Bayonetta wanted. The only problem I have with if the variants were saved and brought back to their timelines and whatnot, I love it, fine. But does that mean Viola's biological parents are alive in her timeline? What if? In Bayonetta 4 or Bayonetta 5, the multiverses after Bayonetta 3 have been closed off for good. But maybe it is Viola's life goal or life mission after being matured enough to be a proper Umbran witch to return back to her original timeline to reunite with her Luka and her Bayonetta. The final end credits scene timeline is indicated by the Statue of Liberty's hand and starting label. The reason why I changed my belief that most timelines, or at least the Brave timeline, was resurrected was because of the gears on the label, which are exactly the same as the prologue scene's introduction. fashion. I believe they deliberately made these labels distinct just to indicate that mostly everything is back to normal from the end credit scene. And of course, Ed and Edna are alive. And again, I think for now the paths to the other timelines or the other universes are closed off. However, this picture that was sent to me by Crazy Gal and Maeve, shoutouts to you guys, shows what appears to be a woman in the back that bears resemblance to a Bayonetta or a Cereza, with her black hair in a ponytail in similar attire to how Brave Cereza was wearing her casual outfit. Is this our slight glimmer of hope, our window of opportunity that is the nail in the coffin, or poor choice of words, for the theory that there are Cerezas still out there, and that the multiverse will eventually open again? Or maybe it's just another woman that looks just like Cereza and is acting as her new aunt. Of course, I'm content with Viola being the next Bayonetta, and I know Anna is going to do an amazing job again, shoutouts to you, as I think Bayonetta would want us to welcome and support her daughter. But keeping an optimistic mindset, let's hope that some Bayonettas that are really important to us will return. I'm rockin', and never get disheartened.